Happy almost spring. I'm Susan Wingrove-Reed, and this is Words on Music for our April grand finale of the 2024-25 season by your Anchorage Symphony Orchestra. It's really hard to believe we have now reached the end of the season, but what a whopper this concert is going to be. You cannot miss it, and experiencing it live will be indescribable. So let's talk through a little information about each of the pieces. The concert will open with a piece called Lumina, and the composer, Nina Shekhar, is the daughter of immigrants from India who settled in Detroit. She's a flutist, saxophonist, music educator, and composer, and she got her start in her high school band composing and arranging and learning about orchestration, where she said she caught the composition bug. She has bachelor degrees in chemical engineering and composition degrees simultaneously in the same school, University of Michigan, and earned her master's at USC and is a PhD candidate at Princeton in composition, where she's also currently faculty at the Mann School of Music. Her commissions are many, and a few of the key big ones include works for the LA Philharmonic, Chicago Symphony, Oregon Symphony, and many others. Lumina, I had an opportunity to see a premiere performance of this by the New York Philharmonic with my husband, and we were entranced with this music, and I was so excited to see that it's going to be on an Anchorage Symphony program now. There is a loose influence of Hindustani music in this piece, and it's a reflection, she wrote, of my first generation American identity. It explores the spectrum of dark and light and the murkiness in between dark and light. There are big contrasts between bright, sharp timbres and cloudy textures and dense harmonies. Captures the sudden bursts of radiance among the eeriness of shadows. Described by a Chicago reviewer, this is seductive, wonderfully mood-setting piece called Lumina, which opens the program. A mesmerizing 11-minute piece, big sounds to eerie and fading and then to silence. Shekhar opens your eyes and your ears to illusions. Cool solo violin mimics the bowed vibraphone and crotales, a very intriguing texture. There's a motif of a sliding third, which goes down, which is very much an example of the Hindustani-inspired moment. Shekhar's sound world is one to bask in. Irresistible textures, rhythms, and stunning tone colors, almost improvisational at times in its sound. In conclusion, Shekhar stated, "It's all about listening and this idea of space." Second on the program is a very short work, an orchestration of one of the world's most famous piano solos by Claude Debussy, Clair de Lune. Impressionism is a visual art form, was born in the early 1870s when Debussy was a child of around 10. Painting and then literature, especially poetry, were big players in this transition from romanticism to something completely new. Painting's fleeting impressions include the masterworks of Monet, Renoir, and many others. Music began to explore light and colors with Impressionism also, and Debussy and Ravel became the leaders of musical Impressionism, a remarkable spontaneous flow to their music. Debussy was asked about any rules that he followed in writing his scores, and he responded, "No rules, just my own pleasure." In 1898, when he was 28 years old, he started a suite in 4 movements for piano solo: Prelude, Minuet, Clair de Lune, and Passeparade. He named this work Suite Bergamesque, and it was published in 1905. Burgamesques were traditional rustic dances evolving from ancient masked Italian theater works and were also common in France. Clair de Lune, which translates to moonlight, is the most famous of the movements of this suite. Its dreamy, emotional score was inspired by a poem by symbolist Paul Verlaine from an early collection he published called Gallant Parties in 1869. The poem reads, in a translation, "Your soul is a select landscape where charming masqueraders and burgomaskers go, playing the lute and dancing and almost sad beneath their fantastic disguises, all sing in a minor key of victorious love and the opportune life. They do not seem to believe in their happiness, and their song mingles with the moonlight, with the still moonlight, sad and beautiful, that sets the birds dreaming in the trees and the fountains sobbing in ecstasy, the tall, slender fountains among marble statues." This is a beautiful, exotic miniature, a moonlit dance. Pleasure and inspiration have been provided by this music to many generations of piano students and audiences all over the world. The piece was used in lots of movies: Casino Royale in 1967, Ocean's 11, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once in 2022, and there was a plan to even include a segment with Claire de Lune in Disney's very famous Fantasia, with animation of herons frolicking in the Everglades at night. But because the film was determined to be too long, it was cut and then used in a film called Make Mine Music in 1946, and it's now a bonus feature on some recordings of Fantasia. There are many orchestrations of this classical gem on symphony concerts. Arthur Luck arranged this gorgeous setting. He played the bass in the Philadelphia Orchestra in 1913, then resigned to serve in World War I. No job after the war, but he was eventually hired by the Detroit Symphony in 1920. He became their main music librarian and handwrote parts for each instrument for many years. He sold some of his arrangements and began a music business in 1940. Luck's Music Library still provides thousands of rental scores from international publishers to orchestras worldwide. Thank you, Arthur Luck. The grand finale on our April concert will be Holst's The Planets, a real favorite of audiences in Anchorage as well as all over the world. Holst was born of Scandinavian descent in rural England to a middle-class but very musical family. He received a music education playing the violin and piano and later taking up the trombone, the mastery of which his father thought would help his asthma. Holst worked for a while as a village organist and choir master before attending the Royal College of Music, where he met his lifelong friend and fellow composer Vaughan Williams. He eventually focused on the trombone and earned a modest living early on as a member of various orchestras, and he soon gave that life up, though, to spend the rest of his life teaching music in private girls' schools. In 1913, Holst visited Majorca. While there, he became acquainted with astrology, which became a lifelong interest, and he wrote to a friend, "As I rule, I only study things which suggest music to me. Recently, I became acquainted with astrology, and the character of each planet suggested ideas to me, and I began studying astrology closely." Imogen, his daughter, recalled that a book by Alan Leo called What is a Horoscope was one of her father's favorite books. And in the book, Leo described the planets, giving each a description and expanding on the astrological significance of each one. The Planets, Holst's most popular work, reflects his characterization of the planets with the exception of the Earth and Pluto, which had not yet been discovered. Holst was very taken by astrology, and in his private parties he liked to give readings and casting horoscopes for his friends. He stands in a long continuum of philosophers, musicians, scientists, and artists who have pondered the mysteries of the cosmos and man's relationship to it. The order and number of the 7 movements has generated a lot of debate with regard to the actual planets and their number and position. It's all really irrelevant because Holst's work has nothing to do with actual planetary geography, but everything to do with the astrological signs, of which there are 7. and not with how we define what planets are or their respective positions to the sun. So the order of the movements, beginning with Mars, stems from the astrological succession. It took him almost 4 years to complete the work, composing in the soundproof music room of St. Paul's School for Girls on weekends and school vacations. And then it was another 3 years before a complete performance was staged in 1920. Wars, The Bringer of War, was completed just before the outbreak of World War I, as if Holst could foresee the unprecedented conflict. Venus, The Bringer of Peace, was written as the first news came of combat on the Western Front. Holst himself was unable to serve due to lifelong poor health. And I'll just jump to a couple of other highlights, particularly the last movement, Neptune the Mystic. It's amazing that this music was composed 100 years ago. He dispenses with the rational and organizing principles of music and creates an atmosphere of not only the mystic, but also traditional characteristics associated with the planet Neptune: illusion, confusion, and deception. Imaginative orchestration in the great tradition of Rimsky-Korsakov and Stravinsky affirm his mastery. This is truly space music, long before the advent of the cliches with which we are all familiar about space. As the orchestra gradually fades into nothingness, along with the voices of a backstage chorus of almost 40 female sopranos and altos singing a non-textual ah, which is eerie and mysterious, gradually vanishes the sound from our hearing. And it's the only truly human element that stays with us, the final thing being the SSA voices, as the composer explores our humanity as the heavens fade. On that note, I hope you can understand my enthusiasm for the concert. And as a keyboard player, I'm super excited because it's a very rare thing, but I get to play in every piece on this concert. The organ on the synthesizer, the celeste, and also the beloved piano. I hope you can join us. Please come to the pre-concert lecture that will happen at 6:30 that evening for even more information about the program. And then do not miss being in your seat at 7:30 p.m. as we explore the ASO's grand gift of a finale to you, our Anchorage audience members. See you at the concert.